Alright guys, we're going to go over how to make a live default template set in Ableton Live. If this is a feature that you're not already currently using, it is extremely helpful. There's no reason not to do it. It saves you a significant amount of time in your workflow, and it doesn't take very long to set up, so this should be a pretty quick video. Let's get right into it. Alright, when you open Ableton, this will be the screen that you see, usually is the first thing. You'll have 2 MIDI tracks and 2 audio tracks. For some people, this works perfectly fine. For me, this doesn't work very well at all. So I will show you how I set up my live set template, then maybe you can take something from it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these MIDI channels and an audio channel. I normally record guitar, drums, and bass and a vocal. So I'm going to relabel this to vocal, and quick tip, if you put a number sign before the title of a channel and hit enter, it will give you a number. So if I just duplicate this a bunch, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually you'll see about 5 vocal channels for me. I do a lot of doubling and harmonies, so 5 vocal channels works for me. I'm going to Control G, or you can right click and group tracks, and then we're going to name this vocal bus. Alright, we're already mostly there. There aren't really any plugins that I like to use on the vocal bus right away. Like, there's nothing that's super consistent. There's usually a low pass or a high pass filter that I'll use, but I don't do that until after we've tracked the vocals. So there's nothing really that is going to be here. Let's change the color. Let's do green. And if you right click here and hit assign track color to group tracks and clips, then it'll change all the grouped colors, the group track colors. Let's do the guitar. So let's rename this guitar. There is a plugin that I like to use. I use Helix Native for my guitar sim. So I'm just going to drag that on there. And we'll see it pop up. We'll just close that. And let's do that little number sign trick again. Number sign, guitar. And then we'll duplicate that a couple times. And then we'll group it. Right click. Oh, let's rename it first. Guitar bus. And then we can change the color. Let's do a blue. Assign track color to group tracks and clips. And we are good. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to do the exact same thing for the bass. So we're going to make a new audio track, rename it bass. Can't forget our little hashtag number sign trick. And we're going to throw Helix Native on there again. I could have just duplicated a guitar track, but here we're actually going to change the quality of the plugin by selecting the DI right here, because this is what I use most commonly for the bass, and this will save with our default template set. So we'll save that. We'll make the single track a group, because sometimes I'll double track, sometimes I won't, but most of the time I just have the single bass track, and we'll name this bass bus. Alright, for my drums, I don't mic drums where I'm at. I use an electronic drum kit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control Shift T to make a MIDI track, and I'm going to drag on Addictive Drums, because that is what I use for my drums. And here we can set the drum set to, I use this Gate to Heaven preset a lot, so we'll just set that as our default drums. And I'm going to name this drum trigger because I do something a little bit different, and I will explain that to you now. So let's go ahead and make a bunch of audio channels. And in Addictive Drums, if we go to our kit here, we have the outs for each sound. So for the kick, we want to set this to separate out post fader and master, and we want to do that for everything. I don't really use the flexi stuff or the fourth tom because our drum set doesn't have that, so I'll just leave that going to the master. Overhead out, room out, and I don't really want the bus out, but that's okay, we'll do it anyway. And then we'll just name these. So our first audio channel will be kick, our second audio channel will be snare, and so on. Kick, snare, hi-hat, tom 1. So these channels by themselves don't carry any information, so we want the information coming from the drum trigger going to our percussion. So we'll change the in to drums trigger and change the post mixer to kick. And we'll do that for everything here. So now when we have these set to in and we have a MIDI clip playing from drum trigger, we can print the audio onto each individual track. That gives us a bunch of control in the mixing phase, so we're not just trying to mix, you know, a whole drum set together, which you can do in Addictive Drums, but I like using my own plugins, so that's why I do it that way. The only downside is printing the whole song, but I'm not usually making songs that are longer than 4 minutes, so sit and wait for 4 minutes and we're good to go. Okay. So let's make another MIDI track. And I like to use the Roland keyboard a lot. So we'll drag that on there. And we will name it keyboard. And I'm going to make a group and name it synth bus. I'm not usually using real piano sounds, so I will name this a synth bus because we're usually using synths. Random color, pink. Very nice. Okay. And we can even go a little bit further and we can group the drum bus and the bass bus together. Rename it Foundation, just because I really like to mix the bass and the drums together. I like to start with those groups together. Okay, so all of the information that we've put in so far fits right here. I'm going to go ahead and delete the reverb and delay send and returns, and I'm going to make 6 returns. I'm going to name this one SMR, MEDR, LR, and then SMD, MEDD, and LD. And these are our return tracks. So here we're going to throw some reverbs on. I like to use the Universal Audio plate reverb for smaller delays. For medium and long reverbs, I'll usually use Vintage Verb from Valhalla. So I'm just going to throw those two on there. I'm not going to change any of the settings because I know they're going to be different later. I know I'm going to change them. I'm not going to set them up now. It's just, there's no point. For the small delay, I like to use the J37 tape emulation plugin. For short delays, especially on vocals. For the medium delay, I honestly just like using the stock Ableton delay for any other delay. I think it sounds great. And if I'm not liking it that day, I have other plugins. I can just throw them in. But I know that I'm probably going to end up using the Ableton stock delay just because it does everything that I want it to do already. Master bus, I will throw on the utility mono. And I will throw on a Max for Live device clip gain Mira. This is a great plugin. You can map. Where's the map button at? What is happening? Did I break it? All right, right click here, edit key map. I map it to my keyboard, so I just press 2 here, and then I exit the key map here in the top right, and then you press 2, and it pops up here with whatever clip you've got selected, and you can adjust the gain, and the pitch, and the warp mode here. Super sick, nasty. I love it. It's a great plugin. And that's it. That's the whole template. There's nothing else to do with this template. So once we have the template completed, let me move my noggin. We will go up to File, Save Live Set as Template, and we can name this Mixing Template whatever, and we can save it. If we go back to the default template, oh my goodness. If we go back to the default template and we go to templates here in user library, or right here, we can go back to our mixing template, open the new file. Depending on what all you've got in there, it might take a while to load. And we have our template set available here. All of our plugins are still there. The presets that you decide to pick will still be there. You can see that this is still set to DI. You might have noticed when I made a MIDI clip that it defaults to Serum, which for some reason I probably had to delete and reinstall, so it's not connected there anymore. But if you want to make a MIDI track default, like say instead of Serum, I wanted this Moog synth as my default, then all you have to do is right click on the channel, save as default MIDI track, overwrite if you have one already, and then the next time you make a MIDI track, it will be the default that you just created. All right. And that's literally it. If you want this to pop open every time that you use Ableton, then you'll set this as the default set here. And play around with it a little bit. Whatever you use a lot, just make that a track and roll with it. I have made tens, I think, probably of these that, you know, I'll make one and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I forgot that. Add something to it, save a new template, set that as my default set. I have default sets for tracking. I have default sets for mixing. I have default sets for hip hop. I have default sets for rock and roll, funk, all different kinds of things. So definitely take advantage of it. All right. Thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate your time spent with the channel. Make sure to check out my latest YouTube video. Follow the Twitch. We stream every morning, 8 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, follow, add me on WhatsApp, match with me on Tinder. We ball. See you guys.